I honestly thought I had seen it all after 44 years of marriage. I thought I knew the man I shared a bed with, the man whose socks I'd picked up since the Carter administration. But when Marcus sat across from me, at our granite kitchen island last Tuesday, avoiding eye contact while stirring his Earl Grey tea, and said, "Beth, I think it's best if you don't come to the lake house this Christmas," I felt the ground beneath my feet turn into vapor. I froze, my hand hovering over the crossword puzzle I'd been working on. "Excuse me. What do you mean, don't come asterisk?" He finally looked up, but he looked past me, focusing on the ficus plant in the corner. "The kids, well, we all think it might be easier if you stayed here this year. You've been a lot lately." "A lot?" I repeated. The words tasted like ash. "What does that mean?" "Abrasive," he said. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and ugly. "You know that tone you get? The one you've been using for the last year or so? Like you're the CEO, and we're all underperforming interns." At Thanksgiving, you interrogated Tessa about her lifestyle brand. At Julian's engagement party, you made that comment about his fiancée's financial planning. The kids are tired of walking on eggshells, Beth. Tessa was our daughter, 42, single, currently trying to launch a manifestation and wellness coaching business on Instagram. Julian was our son, 39, a high school guidance counselor. That's being a mother who understands basic economics. You called her business plan a hallucinatory wish list, Marcus sighed. It was that deep, disappointed sigh I'd been hearing constantly lately. The one that said "I tolerate you, but I don't like you, it was a wish list," I snapped. "See?" Marcus gestured at me with his spoon. That right there. You can't just be supportive. You can't just say, "Good luck, honey." Everything has to be analyzed, deconstructed, and judged by the standards of Elizabeth Sterling. I sat there, staring at the man I'd married in 1980. We'd met at Georgia Tech. I was one of 3 women in the systems engineering program. He was in liberal arts. We built a life, raised 2 children, paid off a mortgage in Seattle, and retired. I had spent 38 years as a systems architect for major logistics firms. I designed the back-end infrastructure that moved shipping containers from Shanghai to Shelburne. I solved problems. I found inefficiencies and I crushed them. It wasn't just my job, it was how my brain worked. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. 44 years, and I'm fired from Christmas. "It's not forever," Marcus said, trying to soften the blow but failing miserably. "Just this year. Give everyone some space to breathe. Maybe you could go visit your sister in Portland. You guys always get along." My sister, Judy, was a retired potter who thought Wi-Fi signals caused headaches. We tolerated each other for 3 days max. "Right," I said, standing up. "Space. You want space. You got it." That night, I lay awake while Marcus snored beside me. The house was dead silent. I thought about the holidays at the lake house, the tradition I had started. The matching pajamas I bought every year. The complex dinner menu I spent 3 days prepping. And now, I was being surgically removed from the family portrait like a smudge on the lens. The next morning, Marcus left for his golf league before I even got out of bed. There was a sticky note on the coffee pot, "Didn't want to wake you. We can talk more later, I didn't want to talk." I went straight to my office. It used to be the guest bedroom, but 5 years ago, I claimed it. Over the last year, as the family slowly pushed me to the margins, rolling their eyes when I spoke, checking their phones, when I told stories, this room had become my sanctuary. They thought I was in here playing solitaire, or browsing Facebook like a normal grandmother. They had no idea. It started back in April. I'd had lunch with an old colleague, Sarah Jenkins, who was still consulting for Amazon. She looked haggard. The supply chain is broken, Beth, she'd told me over Cobb salads. It's a nightmare. We have autonomous trucks, drone deliveries, AI warehousing, but none of the systems talk to each other. The last mile delivery data is completely siloed from the oceanic freight data. We're losing billions in handshake errors. Why hasn't anyone built a universal bridge? I asked. A middleware that translates the legacy code into real-time predictive models. Sarah laughed. Because the people who understand the legacy code are all retired, like you. And the kids writing the new AI models don't understand how a shipping port actually works. There's a knowledge gap the size of the Pacific Ocean. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I knew the legacy systems. I wrote half the protocols used in the 90s. And I had time. So, for the last 8 months, while my family thought I was becoming a bitter, difficult, old woman, I was actually teaching myself Python and TensorFlow. I took online courses at night. I read white papers on neural networks. Tessa had seen me reading a textbook on machine learning once and laughed. Mom, be careful you don't download a virus. Do you need me to set up the iPad for you? I'm fine, Tessa, I'd said. God, so defensive, she'd muttered to Marcus. But I wasn't just reading. I was building. I called it *Sterling Link*. It wasn't flashy. It didn't have a cute logo, but it was a functional prototype of an algorithmic bridge that could ingest data from 40-year-old mainframe systems and translate it instantly for modern cloud-based logistics platforms. I tested it on open-source public transit data. It optimized routing efficiency by 40% in simulation. In early December, I showed it to Sarah. I've been tinkering, I said, sliding my laptop across the table at Starbucks. Sarah looked at the code. Then she looked at the simulation results. Then she took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. Beth, she whispered. Do you realize what this is? It's a translation layer, I said. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. She looked around to make sure no one was listening. This solves the interoperability crisis. This is the holy grail of logistics right now. How long did this take you? 8 months. Give or take. She stared at me. You coded this. Yourself. I had to learn the new syntax, but the logic is the same as it was in 1995. Logic doesn't age, Sarah. I need to make a call, she said. My firm works with a venture capital group in Silicon Valley, Horizon Partners *. They've been looking for exactly this. Things moved fast after that. I had Zoom meetings with men in hoodies, who were half my age. At first, they looked at me, a 66-year-old woman with gray bobbed hair and reading glasses, with polite condescension. They assumed I was someone's secretary, or perhaps his mother sitting in. Then I shared my screen. I walked them through the architecture. I answered their technical questions before they even finished asking them. I corrected their assumptions about Port Authority protocols. By the end of the second meeting, the condescension was gone, replaced by a greedy, respectful silence. They wanted it. They didn't just want to invest, they wanted to acquire the IP completely to integrate it into their portfolio. They offered a buyout. A big one. I didn't tell Marcus. I didn't tell the kids. Why would I? To them, I was just abrasive Beth, the nagger, the dream killer. If I told Tessa I was negotiating with Silicon Valley, she would have asked if I'd fallen for an internet scam. If I told Marcus, he would have told me not to get my hopes up, that I was out of my depth. So I signed the NDAs, I reviewed the contracts myself. I'd read enough legal briefs in my career to know where the bodies were buried. The deal was set to close and be publicly announced on December the 26th. Boxing Day. Irony is a funny thing. Christmas Eve arrived. Marcus packed the SUV with the presents and his duffel bag. Just in case you change your mind, he said weakly, standing in the doorway. You could drive up tomorrow. I won't, I said calmly. Have a good time. Tell the kids I sent their gifts via Venmo. Beth, don't be like that. Like what? You asked for space. I am giving you space. Go. He left. I spent Christmas Eve alone. I ordered Thai food, extra spicy, because Marcus hates spice, and watched Die Hard. I didn't feel sad. That surprised me. I expected to be devastated, crying into my pad thai. Instead, I felt light. Unburdened. For the first time in years, I didn't have to bite my tongue. I didn't have to pretend that Tessa's business wasn't a pyramid scheme. I didn't have to listen to Julian complain about his salary while refusing to take the certification exams I'd suggested. I didn't have to feel Marcus' eyes rolling at me from across the room. It was just me, the silence, and the hum of my server tower in the corner. Christmas Day, I worked. I refined the documentation for the handover. I felt sharp. I felt useful. At 12:01 a.m. on December the 26th, the embargo lifted. My phone was sitting on the coffee table. It buzzed. Then it buzzed again. Then it started ringing. It was Tessa. Mom. Her voice was shrill, practically vibrating. It's midnight, Tessa. What's wrong? Is Dad okay? Is Dad okay? Mom, what is going on? Why is my Google alert for your name exploding? I don't know, Tessa. You tell me. TechCrunch just posted an article, Seattle Systems architect Elizabeth Sterling sells proprietary logistics AI to Zenith Dynamics for $9.2 million, she stopped to breathe. Mom, it says $9.2 million. I took a sip of my wine. That sounds about right. After taxes it'll be less, of course. What? She screamed. Is this a joke? Did you get hacked? No, dear. I didn't get hacked. I built a software platform. I told you I was working on something. You said you were learning to use the computer. I said I was learning Python. You assumed I meant how to use a mouse. I have to. Dad is waking up. Oh my God. She hung up. 30 seconds later, Marcus called. Then Julian. Then Marcus again. I turned my phone on do not disturb. I finished my wine. I went to bed and slept better than I had in a decade. The next morning, the driveway was full. They had driven back from the lake house in the middle of the night. It usually takes 4 hours. I imagine they made it in 3. Marcus walked into the kitchen at 8 a.m. He looked like he hadn't slept. He was wearing the same clothes he left in. I was making coffee. Beth, he croaked. Coffee. I offered. It's fresh. He stared at me as if I had grown a second head. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? Don't play games. He slammed his hand on the counter. The deal. The money. The brain power behind all this. Why didn't you say anything? I turned around, leaning against the counter. Would you have listened? Of course I would have listened. I'm your husband. Really? I raised an eyebrow. When I tried to talk about the inefficiencies in the global supply chain last month at dinner, you turned up the volume on the TV. When I told you I was taking a coding course, you told your golf buddies I was keeping my mind active to prevent senility. He flinched. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. You all did. You decided I was difficult because I have opinions. You decided I was abrasive because I didn't just nod and smile at mediocrity. You decided I was obsolete. Tessa and Julian walked in then. They looked sheepish, terrified, and, let's be honest, a little bit greedy. Mom, Julian started, his hands in his pockets. We saw the news. I assumed you did, I said. Since you're here and not skiing. We're sorry, Tessa blurted out. Tears welled up in her eyes, her go-to move. We treated you horribly. We shouldn't have uninvited you. It was cruel. It was, I agreed. It was very cruel. We want you to know, Julian said, stepping forward, that the money doesn't change anything. We love you. We're just shocked. The money changes everything, Julian, I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. Let's not lie to each other. If I hadn't sold this company, you'd still be at the lake, and I'd still be the difficult mother you didn't want around. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. But, I continued, looking at them, really looking at them. My family, flawed, dismissive, but still mine. I'm not going to hold a grudge. I don't have time for grudges. I have a consulting contract with Zenith starting January the 2nd. Consulting? Marcus asked weakly. They want me to lead the integration team. It's a 2-year contract. I'll be traveling to Silicon Valley twice a month. Marcus sank into a kitchen stool. But you're retired. I was retired. Now, I'm relevant. The next few weeks were interesting. The dynamic in the house shifted tectonically. Suddenly, when I spoke, everyone stopped chewing. Suddenly, my opinions on Tessa's business weren't attacks, they were strategic insights. Tessa came to me a week later with a notebook. No crystals, no manifestation boards. Just a notebook. I scrapped the wellness brand, she said quietly. You were right. The margins were non-existent. I have an idea for a PR firm. Focusing on tech startups founded by women over 50. I think there's a market. I looked at her. There is. It's a niche, but it's underserved. Would you look at my business plan? Please. Not as my mom. As you know. Elizabeth Sterling. I took the notebook. I critiqued it. Harshly. I tore apart her revenue model. I questioned her client acquisition strategy. She didn't cry. She took notes. Okay, she said. I can fix that. Thank you. Julian was harder. He was proud. But in February, he asked if he could borrow money to finally take the certification exams for specialized counseling. He wanted to work with at-risk youth, not just push kids into colleges they couldn't afford. I'll pay for it, I said. As a loan. With interest. You pay me back when you get hired. He smiled. Deal. And Marcus. We're in therapy. It's not easy. 44 years of habits don't vanish because of a bank transfer. We talk about respect. We talk about listening. One night in March, he came into my office while I was on a video call with the Zenith team in Tokyo. He waited until I was done. You're good at that, he said, watching me close the laptop. I forgot how good you were. I never stopped being good, Marcus. You just stopped watching. He nodded, looking down at his hands. I know. I'm trying to catch up. We went to the lake house this past Christmas. I drove my own car, a new Porsche Macan, bought with my own money. When we got there, nobody told me to relax. Nobody rolled their eyes when I commented that the fireplace flue needed cleaning. It did, and I hired a guy to fix it the next day. We sat around the fire on Christmas Eve. Tessa was talking about her first client, a 60-year-old woman who invented a biodegradable gardening pot. Julian was studying for his finals. Mom, Tessa said, raising her wine glass. Can I say something? Go ahead. I'm sorry we called you difficult. You are difficult. You're impossible sometimes. You have zero chill. I laughed. True. But, she smiled, you're also the smartest person in this room. And we were idiots for forgetting that. I clinked my glass against hers. To being difficult, I said. To being difficult, they echoed. I looked out the window at the frozen lake. I had my family back, but more importantly, I had myself back. I wasn't just a wife, or a mother, or a grandmother anymore. I was Elizabeth Sterling. And if being a 67-year-old woman, who commands respect, builds empires, and demands excellence makes me abrasive, well then, hand me the sandpaper. I'm just getting started.